Hey everyone, welcome to the Chilling Hour, where the stories never let you sleep. My name's Daniel Harper. I'm 28 years old. I live in Billings, Montana. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago, and I swear every word of it is true. I've never shared it before because people already think I've lost my mind. But every time I close my eyes, I still see that thing on the road. So maybe telling it helps me breathe again. It started in the summer of 2020. I had just quit my job at a car dealership and needed to clear my head. My girlfriend at the time, Megan, had broken things off the week before, and I just wanted to drive. No plans, no destination. Just me, my 2006 Ford Escape, and miles of highway between me and all the noise in my life. I packed some snacks, filled the tank, and decided I'd drive from Montana down through Wyoming and into Colorado. Just a few days alone to think. The first day was perfect. Open sky, endless road, country stations fading in and out on the radio. I slept in the car at a rest stop outside Casper, Wyoming. Nothing weird. But the second night, that's when things started to twist. I was on a long stretch of Highway 287. It's one of those roads that runs through nothing but flat land and dead grass for miles. No cell signal, no lights, no gas stations. Just the occasional mailbox with no house in sight. Around 9 p.m., the sun was gone and fog began to creep in, the kind that rolls across the pavement like smoke. The GPS said there was a motel 20 miles ahead, so I kept driving. But the fog got thicker, and my high beams only made it worse. I slowed down to about 30, squinting to make out the white lines. Then, I saw something. At first, I thought it was roadkill, a shape lying in the middle of the road. But as I got closer, it moved. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching, and the car stopped just a few feet away. It wasn't an animal. It was a person. A woman. She was lying face down, wearing this old-fashioned white dress that looked like it belonged in the 1940s. Her hair was dark, soaked like she'd been in water. I jumped out and ran to her, shouting, "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't respond. I knelt beside her and touched her shoulder, and her body was ice cold. But when I tried to turn her over, her head twisted first. Not her body, just her head, slowly. Her face tilted toward me, her eyes wide and black as oil, and she let out this sound, like air escaping a pipe, long and high-pitched. I stumbled back, fell on the asphalt, scrambling to my feet. When I looked up again, she was standing. No movement. 1 second she was lying there, the next she was upright, staring at me. Her dress was fluttering even though there was no wind. I don't even remember running back to the car. I just know I slammed the door and floored it. I didn't stop for at least 10 miles. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely keep the wheels straight. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her chasing me. But she didn't. Instead, the fog cleared, and I saw lights ahead. A gas station. I pulled in, breathing like I'd run a marathon. It was one of those old rural places with a flickering sign and a single pump. A guy came out, maybe in his 50s, chewing on a toothpick. "Rough night?" he asked, seeing my face. I nodded. I think I almost hit someone. A woman, out on the highway. He froze. "Where?" he asked quietly. "About 10 miles back, maybe more. She was just lying there." He rubbed his neck, looked toward the fog. "Was she wearing white?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, how did you—" He cut me off. "You didn't stop, did you?" I hesitated. I did. I thought she was hurt." He sighed and spat on the gravel. "You shouldn't have done that. That stretch, people see her sometimes. Always out there when the fog rolls in. Been that way since the 50s. Young girl died in a wreck with her husband. Folks say she's still looking for him." I wanted to laugh it off, but my hands were still trembling. "You're saying she's a ghost?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "I'm saying you best not stop for anyone out here after dark. Not unless you want her riding that home with you." I tried to sleep in my car outside the gas station, but I couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw her face. Those eyes, that twisting sound. I told myself it was shock, exhaustion. I'd imagined it. So the next morning, I drove out again, but I took a different route, east, toward Laramie. No fog, clear skies. For a few hours, everything seemed normal again. I even laughed at myself, thinking how I'd tell the story later as a spooky road trip memory. But around noon, I stopped at a diner. I ordered coffee and pancakes, and when the waitress brought them over, she looked down at me and frowned. "You okay, honey?" "You look pale." I smiled. "Rough night, that's all?" She pointed at my arm. "You cut yourself?" I looked down and froze. There were scratches all along my forearm, thin red lines like fingernail marks. I hadn't noticed them before. I mumbled something, paid, and got back in the car. That's when I realized something was off. The inside of the car smelled like wet earth, like a swamp. I looked around, checked under the seats, but there was nothing. Just the smell, and a small puddle of water on the passenger seat. I reached over to touch it. It was cold, freezing cold, and then my radio turned on by itself. It was an old country station, but the static was thick. Through it, I could just barely hear a woman's voice humming. Not singing, humming. A low, slow tune. I switched it off. The humming didn't stop. It was still there, faint, behind me, like someone sitting in the back seat. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just hit the gas and kept driving until the next town. When I finally stopped, I pulled into a car wash. I vacuumed everything, wiped the seats, checked every inch of that car. Nothing. But when I looked in the side mirror, there was a handprint on the back window. A woman's hand. Long, thin fingers pressed against the glass. I wiped it away. Got back in. Drove again. By the time I reached Colorado, I was losing it. I hadn't slept properly in 2 days. I checked into a small roadside motel. Room 12. I took a shower, left the TV on for noise, and finally crashed on the bed. I woke up to the sound of dripping. The bathroom faucet was off, but water was dripping somewhere. I followed the sound and saw it, coming from the corner of the ceiling. A steady drip of dirty water, hitting the carpet. When I looked closer, I saw something soaking through the ceiling. Something dark. And then I heard it again. That humming. I backed away, heart pounding. The air turned cold. My breath came out white, and slowly, so slowly, the shape of a woman began to appear from the corner of the room. Her head hung low, hair covering her face, water running down her arms. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. She lifted her head, those black eyes staring straight into me. Her mouth opened, water pouring out, and she whispered, "You left me." Then the lights went out. I don't remember much after that. When I woke up, it was morning. The room was dry. No puddle, no dripping. The motel manager said he hadn't seen anyone check into the room next to mine, and there hadn't been any leaks. But when I went to load my bags into the car, the back seat was soaked. Like someone had been sitting there all night. I sold that car a week later. I couldn't even look at it anymore. But here's the part that really messed me up. 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a black and white photograph. Old, creased, and yellowed. It showed a couple standing next to a car on a dirt road. The man was wearing a suit, smiling. The woman was wearing that same white dress. And behind them, on the license plate of the car, was the number of my old Ford Escape. I don't know what it means. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe not. All I know is, sometimes when I drive at night, I catch a glimpse of her in the mirror. Just a shadow. Just for a second. And every time the air smells like wet earth. Every time I hear that low humming. And every time I wonder if she's still waiting for me to stop again. Story the end.
Story number 2.
My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 28 years old, and this happened 3 years ago on a road trip I still can't forget. I've told this story maybe 5 times since then, but people usually just nod or change the subject. I don't blame them. If I hadn't lived through it, I wouldn't believe it either. It started in late October of 2022. I was driving from Denver, Colorado, to a small town in northern Arizona called Holbrook. I had a week off work and wanted to visit my girlfriend, who was studying archaeology there. I decided to drive overnight to avoid traffic, packed up my old silver Ford Escape, filled a thermos with coffee, and hit the road around 9 p.m. The first few hours were fine. Just long stretches of highway and the occasional trucker flashing his headlights as we passed each other. By midnight, I was deep into the mountains, and the radio started to fade in and out. I switched to my Spotify playlist and tried to keep myself awake. The night was so dark, the kind of dark that swallows your headlights whole. Somewhere near the border of New Mexico, I saw a sign for a gas station ahead. Gas and go, 5 miles. My fuel gauge was just above empty, so I decided to pull in. When I got there, the station looked old, maybe abandoned. The lights were flickering weakly, and there was only one pump. The store behind it had a faded "open" sign glowing in the window, but I didn't see anyone inside. Still, I needed gas. I stepped out and the air was freezing cold. The pump handle was greasy, and when I slid my card, the screen said, "Please see attendant." I sighed, locked the car, and walked inside. The bell above the door gave a tired little jingle. The place smelled like dust and old coffee. Shelves were half empty, and there were flies buzzing near the register. Then I saw a man standing behind the counter. He was tall and thin, wearing a dirty flannel shirt and a trucker cap. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes didn't seem right, like he wasn't really looking at me, but through me. I said, "Hey, the pump isn't taking my card." He didn't answer at first, just stared. Then he said in this slow, croaky voice, "Pump's been acting up, cash only." I didn't have much cash, just a 20 in my wallet. I handed it to him and asked for regular. He nodded, but never took his eyes off me. I noticed his hands. They looked cracked and dirty, like he'd been digging in the dirt. I went back outside to pump the gas, but before I could start, I noticed something moving in the rearview mirror. Someone walking along the side of the highway. It was just a shape at first, hard to make out in the darkness, but then I realized it looked like a woman. She was wearing a long white dress, her hair long and dark, and she was barefoot. I froze. She wasn't walking toward me exactly, just drifting along the road. The gas pump clicked on, startling me back to reality. I finished filling up as fast as I could, climbed into the car, and locked the doors. I looked toward the road again, but she was gone. As I started to drive away, I glanced in the mirror one last time, and my heart nearly stopped. The woman in white was standing right beside the gas pump, staring at me. Her face was pale, almost glowing in the dim light, and her eyes were black. Completely black. I didn't think, I just hit the gas and took off. For a while, I thought maybe I was just tired. Maybe I imagined her. But a few miles down the road, my radio started crackling again. Only this time, it wasn't static. I heard a faint voice whisper my name, Daniel. I turned the volume all the way down, but I still heard it. A whisper like it was inside the car. My chest tightened. I looked around. Nothing in the seats, nothing in the back. Then I noticed the temperature dropping. My breath fogged up in front of me, even though I had the heat on. I tried to focus on the road, but then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared in the middle of the highway. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, tires screaming. The figure just stood there in my headlights. It was her. The woman from the gas station. Same dress, same lifeless eyes. I honked, but she didn't move. I yelled, "Get out of the road!" and blinked my headlights, but she just stared. Then, without warning, she started walking toward me. I panicked and threw the car in reverse, backing up so fast I almost went off the shoulder. When I looked forward again, she was gone. I sat there shaking for a minute, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then I saw something on my windshield. 3 long scratches, like fingernail marks, dragging across the glass. That's when I decided to find somewhere to stop. I spotted a small motel about 15 minutes later, Desert View Inn. I pulled in, breathing hard. The parking lot was empty except for one old pickup truck. I went inside and an older lady was sitting behind the desk reading a newspaper. She looked up and smiled politely. "You look pale, hon? Long night?" "Yeah," I said. "Just need a room. Any vacancy?" "Plenty," she said, handing me a key. "Room 3. Cash only." Another cash-only thing. I handed her what I had left, thanked her, and went to my room. The place smelled like mildew, but I didn't care. I just wanted to lock the door and sleep. But sleep didn't come. Every time I started to drift off, I heard something, soft footsteps outside the door, dragging sounds like someone was pacing up and down the walkway. I told myself it was just my imagination until I heard someone knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I didn't move. I just stared at the door, my chest tight. Then came a voice, soft, whispery, female. "Daniel." My stomach dropped. How the hell did she know my name? I whispered to myself, "Don't open it. Don't open it." Then the doorknob started turning. Not fast, slowly, like whoever was out there was testing it. I scrambled for something to defend myself with and grabbed the motel lamp. I was shaking so hard the light flickered against the wall. Then everything went quiet. No footsteps, no voice, nothing. After a few minutes, I worked up the courage to look through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I breathed out and backed away from the door. That's when I heard the bathroom faucet turn on by itself. I turned slowly toward the sound. The bathroom door was half open, the light inside flickering. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I pushed the door open, and the sink was gushing water. My reflection in the cracked mirror looked pale and terrified. And right behind me, in the mirror's reflection, I saw her. The woman in white was standing inches behind me, her face twisted into something inhuman. Her mouth stretched too wide, eyes dark pits. I spun around, but there was no one there. The faucet shut off on its own. I grabbed my keys, bolted out of the room, and ran to my car. The motel clerk wasn't at the desk anymore, and the front door was wide open, swinging in the cold wind. I didn't stop driving until the sun came up. When I finally reached Holbrook, I pulled into a diner, still shaking. The waitress asked if I was okay, and I told her I'd had a rough night. When I mentioned where I'd stopped, her face went pale. She said, "That gas station burned down 10 years ago. A woman died there, caught in the fire. Folks say she still walks the road at night looking for her husband." I felt sick. I showed her the scratches on my windshield, still fresh. She crossed herself and whispered, "You're lucky she didn't follow you home." For a long time, I couldn't drive at night. I'd wake up from dreams of that woman standing in the middle of the highway, calling my name. A few months later, I got curious and tried to find that gas station again. But when I drove the same stretch of road, there was nothing there, just open desert. No pump, no building, not even the sign. Sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I still see her. Just a glimpse in my rearview mirror, a pale figure walking along the shoulder of the highway, hair blowing in the wind. I blink, and she's gone. But once, just once, I heard her voice again, whispering my name from the back seat. Now I never drive alone after dark. And if I see a woman walking the highway in white, I keep my eyes straight ahead and my foot on the gas, because some roads aren't meant to be traveled at night. Story, the end.
Story number 3.
My name is Eric Dalton. I'm 32 years old, and I'm not the kind of person who usually believes in ghost stories. I've always thought of myself as grounded, rational, someone who finds a logical reason behind every strange sound or flicker of shadow. But what happened to me during that road trip through Nevada changed everything I believed about life and death. I don't care if anyone believes me. I just need to tell it. It was late July, 3 years ago. My best friend, Mark, and I were driving from Los Angeles to Denver for a friend's wedding. We decided to take the long route through Nevada, Highway 50, famously called the loneliest road in America. Mark loved eerie places, ghost towns, anything with history, and he convinced me to make the detour. We left Ely, Nevada, just before sunset, planning to reach Austin by midnight. The road stretched endlessly ahead, cutting through mountains and desert plains. No cars, no streetlights, not even a gas station for miles. The orange sky faded to a deep indigo, and the silence became heavy, like the air itself was pressing on us. Mark was driving. I remember the radio was crackling with static, the kind that sometimes flickers between stations when you're too far from any town. I was scrolling through my phone, but there was no signal, not even a single bar. Just then, I noticed a shape on the side of the road, maybe 100 yards ahead. It looked like a person standing there, waving. "Dude, slow down," I said, squinting. Mark eased his foot off the gas. The headlights lit up the figure. It was a woman, mid-30s maybe, wearing a long white dress that shimmered faintly. Her hair was soaked, clinging to her face, and her skin looked pale under the beam of our lights. "Holy crap," Mark muttered. "Is she okay?" We pulled over. She didn't move toward us right away, just stood there. One arm still raised like she was waving. I rolled down my window. "Hey, you need help?" I called out. She slowly lowered her arm. Her eyes caught the light, completely black, like there were no pupils. My stomach dropped. I told Mark to keep driving. But before he could hit the gas, she started walking toward us. Not running, just walking. Slow, deliberate steps, like she knew we couldn't move. Mark froze. "Maybe she's hurt," he whispered. "Mark, go," I said. "Now." He slammed the accelerator, and the tires kicked up dust as we sped away. I turned around to look out the back window, and she was gone. Vanished. Not behind us, not on the side of the road, just gone. We drove in silence for a while, trying to laugh it off. Mark said it was probably some kind of desert mirage or maybe a prank, but something in me knew better. That hollow feeling in my gut wasn't going away. About an hour later, the temperature dropped sharply. The car's digital display showed 52 degrees, which didn't make sense. It had been almost 90 when we left Ely. The windshield fogged up from the inside, and Mark had to turn on the defroster. That's when I noticed the smell. Wet earth, like rain on dirt. But it hadn't rained for days. The smell got stronger, mixed with something metallic like rust or blood. "Do you smell that?" I asked. Mark sniffed. "Yeah, maybe something's leaking?" He pulled over again. The desert was pitch black except for the thin ribbon of headlights. He popped the hood and stepped out. I stayed inside, watching him move around to check the engine. Then the passenger side door unlocked itself. I froze. My hand shot to the lock button, but before I could press it, the door handle lifted. I turned, heart pounding, and saw a pale face pressed against the window. It was her, the woman from before. Her black eyes stared right at me through the glass, water dripping down her cheeks. Her mouth opened slowly, and I swear I could hear her whisper something, though the glass was between us. "Help me!" I screamed for Mark. He ran around to my side just as I slammed the locks down. She was gone again. "Eric, what the hell happened?" he yelled. I couldn't even talk. My throat was tight, my chest burning. He looked around with the flashlight, sweeping the empty desert. Nothing, just wind and sand. We drove the rest of the way in near silence. No music, no talking. Just the hum of the tires and my racing heartbeat. Every time I glanced at the rearview mirror, I thought I saw her face flicker in the darkness behind us. We reached Austin around 1:30 a.m. The town was small, barely a handful of motels and diners. We checked into an old roadside motel called the Silver Sage. The night clerk, an older woman with long gray hair, barely looked up when we walked in. "Long drive?" she asked. "Yeah," Mark said. "From Ely. Weird night, too. We saw a woman out on the road. Looked like she needed help." The clerk froze, her eyes lifted, sharp and wary. "What road?" "Highway 50, I said. She didn't speak for a moment, just stared at us like she was deciding whether to say something. Then she said quietly, "You boys shouldn't stop for anyone out there. Not after dark." "Why?" Mark asked. She hesitated. "A woman died out there in '78. Car went off the road into the ravine near Cold Springs. Took the rescue team 2 days to find her. They say she was still trying to flag cars down long after she was gone." My skin went cold. That night, I barely slept. The motel room felt wrong, like someone else was in there with us. The wallpaper was peeling, the air conditioner made strange knocking noises, and I kept hearing faint dripping sounds from the bathroom sink. Around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. The room was pitch dark except for the weak orange glow from the parking lot outside. I turned my head toward Mark's bed. He was sitting up, staring at the window. "Mark?" I whispered. He didn't answer. I followed his gaze. Outside the window, in the dim light, was the same woman, standing perfectly still, her face almost pressed against the glass. Her mouth was moving again, but no sound came out. I jumped out of bed and ran to the light switch, flipping it on. When the room lit up, she vanished, just gone. Again. Mark looked at me, eyes wide and glassy. "She wants a ride," he said in a strange, flat voice. I grabbed his arm. "Mark, snap out of it." He blinked and shook his head like waking from a dream. "What the hell's happening?" We left the motel before sunrise, didn't even check out. I just wanted to get away from that place. As soon as we got back on the highway, I felt the air lighten a little. The rising sun stretched across the desert, and for a while, I almost convinced myself we were safe. But about 10 miles outside Austin, the car started acting weird again. The radio turned on by itself, just static at first, then faint music. It sounded like an old tune from the 1940s, something soft and crackly, like it was playing through an ancient phonograph. Mark turned it off. It came back on, louder this time. Then, clear as day, through the static, came a woman's voice. "Please, take me home." Mark slammed the brakes, and the car screeched to a stop. We both sat there in silence, staring at the radio. The engine stalled out completely, and when Mark tried to restart it, nothing happened. That's when I saw the handprints. wet handprints on the inside of the windshield. Small, delicate, like a woman's hands. They slid down the glass slowly, leaving streaks of water behind. I could hear breathing, soft, shaky breaths coming from the back seat. I didn't want to look. I knew what I'd see, but I turned anyway. She was sitting there, in the middle seat, her head tilted down, water dripping from her hair onto the fabric. Her skin was gray-blue now, bloated like she'd been underwater for days. Her fingers twitched slightly, and she looked up. "Please," she whispered again. "Take me home." Mark screamed and threw open his door, running out into the desert. I scrambled out too, my heart hammering in my chest. When I turned back, the car's headlights flickered, and then she was gone. We found Mark about a quarter-mile away, kneeling in the dirt, sobbing. He kept repeating the same thing. "She's gone now. She's gone now." A passing truck driver picked us up about an hour later and dropped us at a diner outside Fallon. We never went back for the car. The police said they found it 2 days later, engine dead, battery drained. The seats were soaked, like someone had poured gallons of water inside. Mark stopped talking to me a few months after that. He moved to Oregon and blocked my number. I heard from a mutual friend that he hasn't driven at night since. As for me, I still see her sometimes. In reflections. In the corner of my eyes when it rains. Once, I woke up to find the passenger seat of my car damp, though it hadn't rained in days. I've looked up the accident the clerk mentioned. She was real. Her name was Evelyn Carter. Died July 29th, 1978. Her car swerved off Highway 50 during a storm, and she drowned in a flooded ravine when the car flipped. Her body wasn't found until 2 days later, miles from where she'd crashed, like she'd been walking, looking for help. Every year on that date, people report seeing her, standing on the roadside, waiting, waving for someone to stop. I used to think ghost stories were made up to scare people, but now I know better. Some people never really leave the road they died on. Some keep waiting for a ride home. And sometimes, if you're unlucky enough to drive that lonely stretch of Highway 50 at night, you might just see her standing there too, pale, wet, and whispering your name. Story the end.